Hey inmates, here we are again. This is kind of like a part 3 episode of what we're doing to this bike. So I've already put D4s on. If you've missed that video, I'll put a link up above. There'll be links down below. If you want to see the SoundBomb video, I'll put a link above and down below. They came out last week. So today we're going to fit the Denali Cansmart to an R1200. It's the same Cansmart for the R1250. Let me show you exactly what you get in the box. First of all, you get the Cansmart itself. You also get 3 harnesses. You get one harness for one circuit, another harness which is identical for another circuit. You then get a SoundBomb harness, which we're going to put on, and you also get a little pigtail, which is for the rear B6 light if you wish to use the pigtail. And you also get loads of little zip ties, you get some instructions, you get a little adhesive 3M Velcro thing to stick the Cansmart down the back if you so wish. This is a complete plug and play product. But what I'm going to do today is actually install this so it's the perfect fit for the bike, which means I'm going to be cutting some harnesses down. Now I want to thank a guy called Peter in California who's given me this idea. You know who you are, Peter. Thank you very much. We had a great FaceTime call, didn't we, the other day? If you're considering on buying a Cansmart bundle from me, because remember, I sell these bundles, I sell the light pods, I sell everything. That's Denali. If you're considering on fitting one of these yourself, then follow this video. You can either plug it all in and wrap all the harnesses somewhere under the tail, or if you're like me, you can do what I'm going to do and cut all your harnesses to length and refit the plugs. It sounds a bit daunting, but why not have a look and see what I'm doing? Now, first things first, if you want to get your bike into this situation, I've got it stripped right down. I've even got the fuel tank off. Now, you don't have to do this if you're happy with a little bit of external wiring tucked up into places. But if you want to fit it really professionally, like myself, well then you need to get the fuel tank off, you need to get all the fairings off. So it looks like this. Now, we're not going to show that in this video because it'll be too long. So if you've got a GSA, I'll put a link up above. If you've got the GS non-adventure bike, well then I'll put a link up there as well. So if you're watching this on your TV, you're not seeing the little links up the top, are you? So you need to get on your computer, or maybe you've got a little button on your remote control where you can see the links down below in the description. But I'll put links to those so you can see exactly how to strip down your bike so it looks just like this. So it's all about positioning of the Cansmart, because when the top is back on, just put this, offer it back up again so you can see. When that's in place, we want the Cansmart to be poking out. So the actual top of it, now excuse this Cansmart, this is my old one, so it's, I wouldn't say it's second hand because it's still mine, but I suppose it's second hand to you, but it's mine. So I'm putting my original Gen 2 Cansmart back on. What we want is this to be underneath here, but with this part here, because there's a little USB plug on here. So we want that poking out just here. So I want this Cansmart to be sat just there. So let's take this back off again. And we're going to sit that like so. It still might not be able to go there because it has to reach this plug just here. So this is your tyre pressure monitor. And this is the way how the Cansmart enters your camber system on the bike. So we're going to pull this lead off here, this plug here, put this over here, or just out of the way. And then on the back of the Cansmart, you've got all these plugs. You've got 4 circuit plugs, which all have the exact same plugs on the end of them. Obviously, you've got your mains going to the battery. Then you've got these 2 plugs here. So I've got this one coming up around the outside, and I plug it into the tyre pressure monitor. The side that we unplugged from the tyre pressure monitor is now going to go into the open plug that's on here. Now, I'm not even looking, I can see it's the wrong way, it won't fit, they're polarized plugs. So you have to make sure you've got them turned the right way, and then they click in place. That is now daisy chained into the camber system. It's already plugged in. Now, one thing to note is because a lot of people get confused depending on whether they're working on a GS or an RT, because the RT is laid out a little bit differently. I think I remember when I worked on one RT that this was a bit more out of sight, whereas if you take the whole top off, well, at least you can see everything. So don't get confused between this plug and this plug. To my knowledge, I assumed that every single plug on a BMW is polarized and unique to its own thing. Whereas you'll find that these two are exactly the same. So it's very possible to plug the Cansmart into this. Don't do that, it won't work, okay? So make sure you go into this rectangular shaped device instead of the square one, okay? I've only known one person to do it in the past, and it didn't break anything, nothing got broken, it just didn't work. It's all about tucking everything in as neatly as you possibly can. So, as you can see, there's a little bit of tension on this harness coming from the Cansmart to the tyre pressure monitor. But that's okay, so it means we can't go back as far as we wanted to. Now, if you really wanted to, you could cut this plug off and extend the wires. I think that's a little bit extreme. I would consider to do if we really couldn't get the Cansmart exactly where you wanted to, but just make sure your soldering skills are up to scratch. So with that like that, that's gonna go just there. So we're gonna grab the self-adhesive 3M Velcro patches and put them underneath here so it's fixed to place. And we're just going to get this nicely in position, round about there. So that is now in place, ready, so when the top goes on, it's not going to get in the way. Now what I'm going to do is start running the battery cable back towards the battery. Now, you can, if you want to, just take this straight to the battery. However, on a GS, I just find that I would rather have this fuse somewhere back underneath the seat rather than around the battery, because there's not enough room around there, is there? So what we're going to do today is chop this off and elongate this so we can have the battery fuse terminal in a position where we can access easily if we need to change the fuse. So I've just cut this braiding protection open. So now I'm going to access the red wire, which is the live wire. Cut that open like so. Now coming to this end here, I'm going to reuse this whole fuse holder. So I'm going to cut this side off here, around about there, and again this side here. So based on the length I've just cut here, we're going to match it with this side. Got some nice red heat shrink. I'm just going to pop that over the top of each of the wires, so once we've made the solder connections we can then slide that over, heat it up. I'm just going to zip tie this back, and I always find this very handy. This is basically lots of crocodile clips so you can hold wires nice and steady. Match them up and just drop that on and just wait for them to fuse together basically. So what I'm doing here, I've got pieces of heat shrink. I think they're like 3 or 4 to 1, which means when you apply heat to them, they will shrink down 3 or 4 times as small as what they are right now. There we go, just bring that down like that. Or you can use the BMW tape, which I have on my website for sale. This is official BMW tape because I forgot to slide the heat shrink on over before I soldered the connections. So I'm going to use this instead. So this is the same tape all your harnesses on your bike are wrapped in. So now that's like that, I can thread that back through. Move this out of the way. And now we can hide this fuse just downside that gap, just there. But before I do that, I need to get the live wire out of here because we cut that side off, didn't we? There it is. I'm actually going to cut these to the accurate length, so I don't have any excess whatsoever. So I'm going to measure it up to have an idea of how much slack we have. So if I put the fuse down here, pop this under here, that's where it's going to be. And I'm bringing this around here, so it's going through the middle with the other wires. Now we're going to work out exactly how much length we need. I can already tell you that the ground wire is far too long, so I'm going to take a little bit off that and cut it back to about here. To be fair, I'm being a bit extreme here. It's just that if you know you're going to have a lot of items on the bike, well then you really do need to get rid of any excess wires on the bike as well. I'm going to take this piece of heat shrink off and put another piece on. Now what you'll find interesting is, as I take back the Denali braided covering, there's already a soldered connection underneath here. So those of you who have been watching this thinking, oh, what's he doing? He's doing all these brakes and everything. Well, Denali already make them, okay? The ring spade terminals that they use to go onto the battery, they obviously supply those separately and fit them onto the Denali Cansmart at a later date, like a pair of pigtails if you like. So now I can see this, rather than make another connection just there, I'm going to cut this off and put a new piece on here. Right, now please note that the pieces of extension wire that I'm using are of the same quality, gauge, thickness as what you currently have on here. You can't go thinner. So I'm going to go black to brown, because black and brown are known as ground on automotive, and obviously we've got red to red. I'm just checking to make sure the connection is solid. If it doesn't feel strong, try and bend it if you can, because it shouldn't bend at all. So that is a really, really good connection there. They're not going to come apart. So now I'm going to heat shrink these. Now they are together. I've now got nice loose ends here. I can make the lengths exactly as I want and put ring terminals on the other ends. So I'm going to thread this through, over the top, down above the battery, and now I'm down here. I'm going to cut them to length, leaving a little bit of slack. Obviously you don't want these things tight. Got the ground black and positive red. So now all we need to do is put them on the terminals. Now remember, you always take the negative off first and then the positive, and then when you put it back together again, you put the positive on first and then you finish off with the negative. I've just changed these connectors for a different style, because the ones I put on the ring holes weren't big enough for the connections to go through. Now they fit absolutely fine. So let's put the live to the live, and the ground to the ground. Let's bring up the strap over the top. There we are, folks. The Cansmart is all connected to the bike. And if we come over here and look at the Cansmart at this stage, you'll see we have a little green flashing light. And that tells you the Cansmart is in standby. If I turn the bike on, that will then go a solid green. If it goes any other colour, you've got a problem. These are two of the Cansmart harnesses that come with the Cansmart. So I'm going to take just one of them. This is used because it's my old harness, so it's not a brand new one, but they look exactly the same as this. You get this one at this end. I call it the female plug. I think there's arguments for that, because some people will say it's male because it's got pins inside there, although the male plugs on the end of the Cansmart go inside this plastic covering here, so that's why I call this the female. And on the other end, you get two of the smaller ones. Now, a lot of people, or yourself, you might be considering, or you've already bought a Denali bundle and you've got your Cansmart, you've got your harnesses, and you only need one of these on the end. Because the beauty with the Gen 2 Cansmart is you run two circuits to one set of lights. So you've got one D4 going down the left and you've got one D4 going down the right. And because you're taking this all the way to a D4 or any light pod, well then you've got one spare. So you can either just tape it up or buy a blanking plug, which I do on the website, or just leave it open. But obviously moisture could get inside the end. Or we could just remake it. So for this purpose today, I'm not going to do any of that. Like I say, it's a full plug and play kit. However, I'm making this specific for the bike and the setup I'm going to be running on this bike. And all I'm going to be running on this bike is a D4 bundle. So I'm going to get rid of one of these and make a harness fit for purpose. I'm literally cutting off one of these and then remaking the harness so it's one length, and I'm also going to make the harnesses the exact length I want for this bike to avoid any excess wires underneath the back. So do you remember on the video where we fitted these D4s just here, and we pulled the harness through from the back of the D4 pod? So that is basically the same wire there. It's just hanging there waiting to be connected to the Cansmart. So we're going to take the end of the Cansmart lead and we're going to plug this straight into here. Now that's on there, I'm going to start threading the wire through. So I'm threading this around the back of this air pipe here. And as that comes round, I want to keep it away from anything that's moving just behind here. So I'm coming in with these wires here, so I've got a little bit of slack just here, and if you want to, you can put a cable tie around the air hose, which I'm actually going to do. Now you should be able to see there's the wire there coming through. And we're going to continue using zip ties to keep it all nicely snug against here. And then I'm dropping this down inside here. Another zip tie. And then when the fuel tank comes in, it will sit right in there as it normally does anyway, because it's got like a dip on the tank and it fits just inside here. All the wires will be out of the way because we've taken it around the perimeter. Now I'm going to bring this up here. Now I'm not going to zip tie it from anywhere here backwards because we're going to put some braid protection sleeving over all of the harnesses as they come through. And now we're on the other side of the bike. So there's the D4 pod. Here's the harness routed through and it ends up just here. So we're going to take the other harness out of the Cansmart box. And as I mentioned earlier, I've cut these, so I've actually remade them. So we haven't got the spur on the side of it. But you can just use what comes in the box. It's absolutely fine as long as you tape up the other connection. So this one, we need to make sure that this is resting against here. Although these are very much heat protected, this gets very hot. So we need to make sure that that doesn't come into contact with it ideally. Now what I like to do is unscrew the coolant, pull that to one side. Just like the other side, we're going around the back of this air hose. And we're going to zip tie that up there so it can't come into contact with this radiator cap. Now you could take it straight to the actual air box. Do you know what? I've never done that before, but I'm going to do it. There we are. Now that's tied up there around this air intake. I've now brought it down here, bearing in mind the coolant bottle needs to go back onto the side here. So that's coming through around the back there. There's no moving little arms around here, so I'm not too worried about tying it to this. You can if you want to, whereas on the other side you'll see a little arm that moves up and down with the suspension. So I'm going to bring that round like so. None of these zip ties are tight, by the way, just keeps it all where you need it to be. Now we're going to put this back in place. That's nice and neat, tidy, out of the way, tucked back there beautifully. Now with this one, you can follow the same kind of path as you had over here and tuck around the side, or you can lift this up. And to lift that up, if you just grab a screwdriver and wiggle it out, and it comes up like that. And we're just going to pop that down inside there. Like so, and then you squeeze it back down again. Now we are going to be lifting this again because we're going to be fitting a camera to this, so there's going to be more cables coming through. I'd normally pull everything through at the same time, but just for the simplicity of this video, I just want to show the Cansmart being installed with one set of D4s. We now need to bring the SoundBomb cable through. So in the Cansmart box, you've got those two harnesses for the lights, and then you get a harness that looks like this. This is the SoundBomb cable. So you get a green and a black wire. Black is ground, green is the positive. As you look at the SoundBomb whilst it's in this position, my advice is look at the instructions or look underneath and look for which one is positive and which one is negative. If you get them back to front, it will work but make a horrible like kind of dead duck sound. Don't know how a dead duck makes a sound really, if it's dead. Anyway, I know that positive is on the right, so as you look at the bike right now, Positive is on this side, you can just see the contacts there. I'm going to get this and I'm going to push this. You can go either way you want, but I'm going to go to the left. It's a very similar path, and what you're doing is you're bringing it up alongside those wires, those hoses, and this plug here will come out where the coolant reservoir is. So I put the coolant reservoir on too soon, I got carried away. So we're going to take that off again so we can see exactly where it's coming out at. Now I've pulled that through. We haven't zip tied it to anything yet, but we need to. I'm now going to put the green wire to the right and the black wire to the left terminal. And now I'm zip tying it to the frame of the bike. But please note, you're not zip tying that SoundBomb cable to the brake line. You're just connecting it to the frame. So here we are again. Now this is the SoundBomb instead of the light harness, which we've just done. Following the same line as the light harness. Bringing that through. Putting the coolant reservoir back in place. I'm just going to pop this one under here as well. Okay, so here we are, we've got the 3 cables, and you know what, I don't care which one does what. By looking inside here, you can see 2 of these will have 3 pins and 1 of them will have 2 pins. The one with 2 pins is your SoundBomb, and that's going to go onto the blue circuit of the Cansmart. The other 2 are going to go onto the white and red circuits, and then we will pair those up as a pair of lights called light pair 1. Right, now this is where we get really clever, because we're going to use a load of this. I don't remember what measurement it is, but I'm going to start selling this on the website. So you can buy this if you want to really tidy up your installations. So we're going to cut off a length just so we can cover the harnesses from here through to here. So by the time it's in there, because it's going to expand a bit, because these are quite bulky, it actually shrinks down in length. So we're going to cut it to around about this kind of length. Before you start threading everything through this, you find that the ends start fraying. So we need to make sure that they have been melted at the ends so they don't start fraying. And I'll show you how you do that. Now, the way I do this is I get a back of a screwdriver and I get the other end of the braid hosing. I then start to push the back of the screwdriver into the back of the braiding. Now, I've picked a screwdriver that won't fit through here. That means this is already expanding at its widest. Then what we do, I don't want to cut this jacket, pushing that against you like so. I then get my heat gun, which gets very, very hot indeed. And then I'm going to start just melting the edges away. And what that gives you is a constant opening at the end. And you need to do that both ends. And there you have it. So these 2 are completely open and they're not going to fray either. So we're going to grab all the ends and we're going to start threading them through. Do this, we start kind of like push from one end and then you pull it through. But before you pulled it through, you need to start with the other one as well. And after 3, it starts getting a little bit tight, but you'll notice that you can't just like pull it over like pulling a sock over your foot. There's definitely a technique of pushing from one end and pulling over from the other end. And the next one. And once you've got the plugs through, then you can just like pull it back and forth. It's very, very easy then. So all 3 plugs are now through. Now we're just going to get rid of the slack at this end here. And then we can set this exactly where we want it. And we want it sitting around about like that. So you see how it's shrunk down because it's expanded. The actual length of it's come down. So that is a perfect length. But then again, I've cut about 100 or so of these. Actually, I don't know how many, probably more. So I'm now going to zip tie this end. Now if you're really clever, you can put the K2 front camera through here as well. So the wire coming from the front camera itself, that can come through here as well, which goes straight to the back where the DVR is, which I probably will do when we fit the K2. I'll just loosen this off and the one this side and thread that through as well. Right, so all of these 3 plugs are going to go underneath here and connect to the 3 circuits out of the 4 that are coming from the Cansmart. But as you can see, this one for sure is definitely far too long. So we're going to cut this one down. That's the SoundBomb cable. Now we could, and you can do this, just plug it in and coil it all up. But for today's video, I really want to see what it's like to cut them all to length. So I'm going to be quite brutal with this. If I just thread them under, so you definitely see where they're going to end up at. So the SoundBomb cable is that one there, and I'm going to snip that one off there. There's the SoundBomb cable off. Then these are the D4s. One's going to go to the white circuits, one's going to go to the red circuit. So there's the white circuit there. By the time that the new plug is on there, it's going to be around about there. Snip that off. And then the red circuit, which is literally just here. We could put it on the yellow circuit actually. Yeah, we're going to put it on the yellow circuit, and I'm going to snip that one just there as well. So, who's looking at their screen with their mouth wide open, going, "What the? What's he doing?" Okay, so now we've cut those plugs off, which you're probably thinking, crazy, crazy, crazy. We're now going to obviously, we've trimmed it to length, and now we're going to put plugs back on again. Now, you can either buy, in my case, if I was having to buy these plugs somewhere, obviously I buy them for myself, you can buy 3 of these, or you can buy 3 of these. If I just open one of these up, if you buy 3 of these, this is the DNL WHS050. This is an MT series plug, but you get the pigtails sticking out the back of it, and they're all color coded, which is pretty perfect if you would rather solder your connections. Now, the only thing with this is, once you've made the solder connections, obviously you've got a bit more, you've got all that there as well, so you'd need to cut those wires back a bit further and then put these on, and then you'd have that length there. Now, I'm not going to do that today, so we're not going to solder them on. I'm going to use the crimp style MT plugs, which are the DNL CTR MT03. These ones here. These, I think these are more expensive on the website. Now, the only reason that I think that they're more expensive is because in here, you get the female plug and you get the male plug. So we're going to throw the male plug away, and you get all the pins and all the waterproof seals to put around the wire. I'm now going to refit these right now. So all you need for this is patience and a pair of these. Okay, let's crack on and get them on. To get started on this, I'm just going to cut these wires back again using a very sharp Stanley blade. So I like to solder the ends before I put the pins on, only because I've had experience of the pins falling off if they get pulled. And so when you crimp the pins on, they just seem to grab a lot better. Now what we do is pop these in here. So you've got to make sure you get these the right way around. So as you look at the top of the plug, you'll see you've got like a black pin, a black plastic pin as part of the plug molding. Well, that's kind of the bottom of the plug. It's also where the hole is, where the clip goes in. So as you look at that, that forms a triangle. You get 2 pins at the bottom and you get 1 pin at the top. The one at the top is the ground. Obviously we push in from the back, and you've got to make sure that it goes in the right way around. Before we put that on, we're going to pop a little bit of heat shrink over the top of this. Okay, and that has just clicked in very nicely. The yellow one, as you look at it from this side, it's on the right hand side, so it goes in on the left on this side. Now, if in doubt, use a wiring schematic. I'll put a link in the description to a wiring schematic so you can see how these are wired together. So that's now coming in, and you're listening for that click. There it is. And then the red wire is going in the one that's left over. There we are. And just make sure the little seals are seated in nicely. So I'm just going to poke that in with a tiny screwdriver I've got here. And there we are. All the pins are beautifully in there. Beautifully in there. Now we're going to pull the heat shrink over the top. Right, so this one I'm going to plug into either the white or the red, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to go into the white one because it's nice and long, and it reaches that one perfectly. And there we are. Now for the other two, I think what I'm going to do actually is just bring these out. This one's going to go to the SoundBomb, so we're going to put that one to blue. Actually, I might put that one to yellow, it's a better length, because then blue can go around for something else. So SoundBomb to yellow, that's a nice length already, and then the other harness for the other D4 will go to the red, which will be here. So I'm just going to cut that red one down even more. So pull this out to give us some slack, and let's do it again. So remembering that the one with the two pins is the SoundBomb, I'm going to put that into the yellow one. It just fits nice. We could go to the blue one, that's the default for the SoundBomb, but I'm going into the yellow. And this D4 here I'm going to stick into the white harness. Well, there's one back here as well. So put this one into the white harness, top here. And then the red harness is going to go, and we could do the blue, which is actually the better fit, the blue, going into this. And you know what? This is all about being a really perfect fit, so I'm going to go blue for that one there. So we're going to have red over here, which is going to be, it's going to power up our K2, the red is. Now take a look at that. That is a very tidy, neat install. So what I've done here is I've plugged in the USB from my Mac, my computer, to the Cansmart, so we're all plugged in. We're now going to click on the firmware at the bottom I've got here, and this is basically it. We are now in. It doesn't need any updates or anything because this is a Cansmart that I've used before in the past on my bike, but we do need to change the configuration. So what you see here is based on how I had my bike configured in 2020. This is now 2021 config. So the red is currently free. I'm pretty sure I put the yellow on the SoundBomb. So if you look on here, as I'm circling the yellow circuit, that's set to brake light. So we need to change that to SoundBomb. So if I go to horn, hit apply, but the really important thing we have to do here is change the amps to 25 amps. But if you look, it's done it all by itself anyway, because the horn is a default 25 amps. Now, if I go to the blue circuit, which I've got plugged into one of the D4s, we're going to call that left light 1. Now, can you see my options? I've got left light 1, right light 1, light pair 1. And below that, I've got left light 2, right light 2, and light pair 2. Now, you would never ever do a left light 1 and a light pair 1 if you were configuring stuff. It just wouldn't work. It's either or. So Because we're doing generation 2 here, we are definitely going to be doing left light 1 and right light 1, because we've run a circuit to each of those lights, because it's 2 circuits, but we're pairing it up. The only time when you'd ever select light pair 1 is if you are running one harness to 2 lights, because then that is a pair of lights on one circuit. So that would be a pair of lights on one circuit. But we are doing a left circuit and a right circuit. So I'm going to call it left light 1. It might be the right light. I don't know. We're going to find out in a second. And now I'm going to hit apply. It's a D4, which peaks at 3.3 amps for one D4. So we're going to change the amps to, well, I'll leave it on 5 amps. I think 5 amps is absolutely fine. And now we're going to go to the white circuit, and we're going to call this right light 1. Hit apply. So what we have here, if you look at blue and white, did you notice the page dynamically change all by itself? It's because we've only got so many things set on here. So if you look blue and white, one is left and one is right, but it's both left light 1 and right light 1. You can't, it's not left light 1 and right light 2, because that's the second pair of lights. If you had another set of lights on here, then you have the same option again. But if you look where I'm circling now, you've got red, blue and white. That's because we haven't configured the red yet. So right now there's a conflict on here. It doesn't know there's a conflict, but there is a conflict. So we need to get rid of that, and we're actually going to turn that red circuit into an accessory. You could do brake light, you could do heated gear, but we're going to do it, just put it onto accessory and hit apply. And we're going to sort out the K2 in another video by plugging the K2 directly into the Cansmart. So if you notice, on the blue circuit I've got 5 amps, and on the white circuit I've got 5 amps. Right, so now it's time to actually configure this light pair. So if you look here, you've got auxiliary lights 1, and I'm going to set the high beam to 100%, so when we flash the lights it will come on at 100%, and we're going to set the low beam for day intensity. I think 30% is more than enough, and night intensity also on 30%, which I feel is enough, but you can change that if you so wish. We're going to have each side turning off as and when we hit the indicator, and we're going to have them strobing when we hit the horn. We're going to have them strobing when we flash the lights 3 times, and also when I hit the hazards we're going to have that doing an inverse flash. Modulation, leave that off. I've had customers contact me saying, Steve, my lights are flickering as I'm going along, and I found out later on by doing a little bit of a process of elimination that they switch modulation on, because you see this platform and you think to yourself, oh, I want everything, so they flick everything on, not realizing the modulation causes your lights to flicker during daylight hours. And we want 3-wire dimming on as well, so that's obviously turned off. It should be on as default. That is turned off on here because of the way I had it set up on my old bike, where I had turn signals all set up, and you have to set it as 2-wire dimming. So horn is enabled, and the accessory 10-second timeout. We're going to change that, I think, to 30 seconds when we plug the K2 into here as well. Now I'm happy with all this, so now what we're going to do is test to make sure we've definitely got the left light 1 going to the left light and right light 1 going to the right light. And to do this, we click on the hazard triangle at the top. Now I'm going to go to the white circuit and turn it on. This is going to give me right light, so I want it to come on this side, which is the accelerator side of the bike. What happens? Yes, we got it right. Now, if we got it wrong, you can either unplug all the harnesses and stuff and rewire it, but why would you do that when you can just rename the circuits on here to call the white circuit left light 1, and to call the blue circuits, let's just check on here, the blue circuits right light 1. You just swap them around on the software. So now we're going to go to the blue circuit and raise this, and you see the left lights coming on. So this is basically me testing everything on here. Now if I go to the yellow circuit and put that on, block your ears, that activates the horn. I didn't even touch the horn, it's just a test feature on the Cansmart. So now what I'm going to do is turn the ignition on. Right, so when I indicate this way, I've got that one turning off. Cancel the indicator, it comes back on again. Indicate left, cancel the indicator, and it comes back on again. I flash the lights, and now I'm going to flick the lights 3 times, and we've got the strobing. And then when I hit the hazard lights, we've got that. That's it, mates. We're done here. The Cansmart's all on, and I have purposely made those harnesses to fit perfectly to the bike, which you don't need to do. I've actually overcomplicated the whole process. So you can literally take it out of the box, plug it all in any excess harness you've got left over, you can just wrap it around itself, turn it back on itself, cable tie it down. Plenty of room under there. I've been installing it like that for the last 2 or 3 years. So that's okay. But if you want to go the extra mile, you can cut the plugs off, shorten the harness down to length, fit your own plugs, which you can order from me. And the other thing was I lengthened the power supply from the battery so the fuse wasn't in an awkward position around the battery, and it's in a nice, neat place that I can access under my seat. So big thumbs up there. So stay tuned for the next video, and I'll try and make it much quicker, but stay tuned for the InOV K2 camera installation. And I know you're all thinking, but we want to see the K5 installation. That will come soon. I have got lots of K5s here. I've sold a lot of K5s already, and I've got some bikes booked in March that are having K5s installed as well. So that will be coming soon, and I've got a very, very special mounting position for the front camera on the GSA. I'm not going to say too much more about it. It's going to look pretty awesome. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. Give me a reason why you didn't like it. I always like to have constructive feedback to try and improve what I'm doing here. All right, ride safe, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.